So, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here with us virtually today for another edutainment event from the Staffing Management Association of New Jersey. There'll be more to come in attendance. My name is Travis Fagan. I am the Staffing Management Association of New Jersey's Director of Programs, and I would love to officially kick things off for tonight's event, which is going to be centralized on the ROI on backfilling and reskilling jobs. Very, very much appreciate having you here today. In order to do so, we have a fantastic guest who might seem a little familiar too. If you've been following SMA events past, before I officially turn the electronic microphone on over and introduce her, it'd be my pleasure to also extend a hearty introduction to SMA's president, Lisa Panarello. Lisa, if you'd like to jump in and say a few words.
Thank you, Travis. Always love your enthusiastic openings and kind intro. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see and hear you. I know we're on mic, but on mute, but we'll get you. We want to hear everything you have to ask as we go through today. I am, as Travis said, the current president of SMA, but I'm also excited to share that we have our president-elect on the call. So 3 cheers for Murli Dar Shyam. Shyam. We're excited to have you on board, Murli. You will certainly be front and center in all of our future engagements. What's not going to change is the great content and engagement that we bring to the table. But you will see some wonderful new things happening with SMA next year. So I want everyone to stay tuned, to stay in touch. And as we have fresh speakers, fresh engagements, fresh activities that are going to come your way from a learning perspective and from a fun perspective, keep in tune. That's it. Back to you, Travis. Let's kick it off.
Let's kick it off. Thank you so much, Lisa. Gracious as always. And I'm sure, as all of you might know, I hadn't actually even mentioned too, but in case any of you are not aware, SMA, we are the only branch within SHRM in the New Jersey area, which is specifically catered towards events in the staffing and recruiting industry. So before I move the buck on over to our wonderful speaker, a real quick go through some of the socials of the event to give all of you a chance to get affiliated on our social channels, Instagram and YouTube. Of course, you can get set up and subscribing from the QRC codes that you see right over here. You'll be able to get these following up the event and everything as well in the subsequent marketing materials that you'll see as well. But of course, there are also an assortment of benefits to joining the chapter and of course, being a member of the chapter. They are such examples of source of resources from SHRM, job description templates, how-to guides, an assortment of interactive tools, the content within allows you to go further into the research policy updates, ask an advisor assistance, and then of course the specific SMA benefits, which are our staffing-focused events, the local recruiter network we provide you to, of course, the SHRM recertification credits, of which you will be receiving from your attendance of joining this event today, and discounts on upcoming SMA events as well. In addition, we are within SMA, as Lisa had said, our new president-elect, Murli, we are bringing things into fantastic hands, but there are additional opportunities within that we'd love to have you a part of if you had the time to do so as well, such as member relations, communications, social media, college relations, partnerships, the aforesaid certification and education, treasurer opportunities, and the various committees. And then, of course, the benefits that being a board volunteer inhibits over to you, which is influencing peer success, allowing you to build some, of course, very, very valuable resume experience, and gaining the very, very much needed marketing and industry experience into HR, talent acquisition, staffing, and recruiting industry. Okay. And without further ado, I would love to end up introducing our fantastic speaker for the evening, Susan Russo. Susan has over 15 years experience implementing leadership development and employee engagement programs. She has served as an HR leader in businesses and global Fortune 500 companies to further develop and train modern workforces. And she's been pivotal in helping to shape HR leadership for the HR leaders of today and tomorrow. So, Susan, love to have you here with us here this evening. I turn it on over to you.
Thank you, Travis. It is good to be back. As Travis mentioned, I was your speaker, I think about 2 years ago. Does that sound right? maybe about 2 years ago.
It goes
So
fast, Susan.
it does go
Right.
fast. So tonight is not the same content, but still, I hope, as relevant and useful as always. So, in the spirit of QR codes, here are two of mine. One is for my LinkedIn, the other is for my website. Please scan away and stay in touch. We do have a smaller sized group tonight, so I do invite interaction as we go along. I think it's perfectly fine to ask the questions and share the thoughts as they're coming up. That'll make it a more rewarding experience for everyone, and it'll make the learning stick a little bit more as well. So let's take advantage of the benefits that the small group offers us. So, a quick overview of the agenda I will share with you before I start asking you questions. I'm going to share some background, and I call it compelling data because there's boring data and there's compelling data. And I like to only share data that is going to make you say, wow, or case studies that could be a made for TV movie. I really want to keep you engaged and I want you to learn. And the best way for you to do that is by getting in front of things that are interesting. So it's just the compelling data. I'm going to talk a little bit about what your job is and what the perceptions are around the value of talent acquisition and recruiting, because you might have noticed this already, but expectations have gotten high out there. Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about perceptions of value and your role, and maybe some easy ways to infuse that value in there. We'll talk about strategic decisions and ultimately results in the things that you are doing. So, my first question, you can put it in chat or you can just yell at me, but I'm curious how many of you are doing talent acquisition internally for organizations and how many are serving as external recruiters? So go ahead and tell me. And the reason I'm asking you is because though I have written the content I'm covering tonight, that'll inform me of where to focus a little bit more based on the audience in front of me right now. Oh, nice. We have a good blend. Okay. I see internal and external. Okay. So there will be no skipping of slides. Excellent. All right. So I'm curious if anybody wants to unmute your mic and answer for the group. What would you say the number one expectation is for you? And please share when you answer that question if you're internal or external. Yes, we have a nice blend here of internal and external. Very good.
Forgive me, Susan, can you repeat that question?
What's the expectation of your role? That's it in one sentence. So I think about that old movie, what is your name and what do you do here? What do you do here? I can see your name, it's written. What do you do here?
Maybe we need a whole nother
They're probably
training session,
typing.
expectations. Yeah.
You can unmute and just yell it out. There's not a whole lot of people here.
Jennifer, what's your expectations in your role? What do folks expect from you at work?
Everything.
Thanks. To do more networking with peers. Okay, very good. I suspect I know why, but we'll talk about that later.
To problem solve. I would say that I'm always the problem solver.
Okay, very good. Anybody else want to jump in there?
And if you're in transition, maybe look at the question as what you expect your expectations to be when you're in your next great role.
I would say the constant for me has been trying to help folks navigate change internally.
Navigate change. Excellent. Marlee, you unmuted. That makes you next.
Yeah, so I'll give an external perspective as a search partner. We are expected to deliver in a fastest turnaround time with the best-in-class candidate, which helps business grow. So the catch is fast pace, hiring process, great selection techniques being used, whether it is psychometric tools, whether it is cognitive tools, whether it is BEI, whatever you do, but customer is looking for the best talent available in the market. They will not look at what they're offering compensation. but they will definitely want to have the best talent on board with the shortest time frame from the market, and that's the expectation of customers.
Excellent. Okay, so good, cheap, and fast, all three. That's an old, if you ever took a marketing class, that's the joke. You can get two of the three. You cannot have all three. So that's the joke. Good, cheap, and fast. Okay, so yes, it sounds like everybody wants all three. All right, very good. So I'm going to give you some information that I think for those of you who are responsible for headcount and recruiting is going to be very useful. So there is the perception out there around cost cutting. So those of you who are charged with refilling positions, hiring positions, this may be a challenge because there's the perception of being very little downside to cost cutting. So direct cost cutting would be where we lay off the people, right? We reduce our expenditures, we cut the benefits, we increase the premiums, we trim down the training. Those are very direct, concrete costs. The indirect costs are just don't fill the open roles. People can figure it out. How many of you have had these as some obstacles that you've had to deal with? We'll call it mindset obstacles. Yes? Sure, because these are not things that are on a balance sheet. So they don't really well, the inverse is true. The numbers are on the balance sheet, but things like letting people struggle and figure it out are not. There are costs associated with that, though. So what we find when we do our research is that when we cut costs in the form of layoffs, we end up having worse financial performance later. So how many of you have struggled to recruit, whether you're internal or external? You can answer this question. How many of you have struggled to recruit because you've had conversations with candidates and you're hearing things like, well, I just saw on Google, I saw on LinkedIn, people were just downsized from there. So I'm a little concerned about talking to you about coming on board. Is this a pain point anybody has had to deal with? I see some heads nodding. We also have the pain point of just leaving the position open. And the math around that is that one standard deviation of the role being open is related to a 5 to 6% lower quarterly return on assets. So I give you this information to help arm you when you're having these conversations with hiring managers and decision makers around why they should fill those positions, around why we should not let our incumbents struggle. We'll talk more about, incumbents struggling and why that's related to talent acquisition. But any questions here before I move on? Go ahead, Murli.
So the one point which is always very pertinent on the cost of losing opportunities, right? When we delay the hiring or when we don't hire, and it's a chicken egg story. Either we hire and we build business in the market, or we don't hire, we lose business in the market, or we defer business in the market. Now, which one is right? Actually, everything is right and nothing is right, because it all depends on the situation of the business, the market dynamics, and also the talent availability at the cost. So it's a very judicious call a business has to take when they are not hiring or deferring hiring, or decided to rampant hire at a time when it is going to hit us. It is going to hit us badly. And the biggest example is when in the COVID, most IT companies, they thought that now the life is all revolving around all the developers, and that's end of the world. And they ended up hiring huge number of developers at a cost which was 90th percentile of the market, almost 110th percentile of the market, and they hired left, right, including all biggies, whether it is Google, Microsoft, or you name it. And what happened when the pandemic got settled down?
Don't give a spoiler alert. I am going to cover
that. So my objective is to reflect on is that when we don't take a judicious call, we get over ambitious in just rampant hiring, and then a rampant hive off, from the.
Well, yes. So that definitely was a hiccup. And a lot of people left good jobs to join companies that then laid them off. So that was certainly painful. And the aftermath of that is, again, it's very difficult now to recruit and acquire the talent that we need. So that's why I stopped you. No spoilers here. So who remembers what happened last year with Meta, Facebook? Some of you have already told this too. You were in another training I did. Who remembers what I said? What percentage of their workforce ended up ultimately being cut? It was more than one round, but who remembers? A few of you were right there when I taught this. Who remembers what percentage of this workforce got reduced?
Was it 15%?
25. He cringed.
Oh, it's cringeworthy.
It is cringeworthy. And you know what happened next? Like 6 months later, they hired a bunch of those people back because they cut too deep, right? So this is a key problem, cutting too deep and then making it difficult for ourselves to acquire key talent because now people are suspicious of us, right? Another key problem in our space, in the talent acquisition space. How many of you have been on the receiving end of this question? Ever had this happen? The brand new hire that you just sent me quit? Definitely, I'm getting thumbs up. Yes, yes, this is another big problem too, right? This is uncomfortable, especially external recruiters. Come on, that has to be even more uncomfortable. Isn't this what puts food on your table? Making those placements, and now you've got a phone call that the brand new person you sent me just quit. So who can tell me very quickly, how would you respond to that? How would you respond if somebody gets you on the phone and they're probably unpleasant, remarking to you that the brand new person that you sent them just quit? How do you handle that?
I have been in a situation like that where I've had to find the nice way to say maybe the way that you were advertising the position or marketing the position was inauthentic to what the position actually ended up being.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mismatch. How many of you once upon a time felt that your role was just to fill the spot and that having these conversations, the behind the scenes, what's going on behind the curtain, what are you doing with onboarding, what are you doing with training, what are you doing in your comp and ben space? How many of you kind of felt like that wasn't really your area, that that's not recruiting, that's not talent acquisition? All right,
Susan, what I can say to that is that at one point, it may have not been a thought, right? If the thought may have been to just fill the seat, but with
mm-hmm.
years of experience now, the culture is a big push now. When you interview individuals, they want to know the culture of the company, how diverse it is. They want to know flexibility. It's not really necessarily anymore about benefits and the salary. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many other standards that they are trying to meet for a new hire. And I think just speaking to what he said, if you're not honestly stating what that is for that new hire, then they come on board and we lose them. So I think
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different buckets now that we have to be mindful of.
There absolutely are. And over time, your roles have become more sophisticated by virtue of technology. Gone are the days that you're reading first time resume submissions, right? You're using applicant tracking system now. Is anybody not? Is anybody still posting a monster ad? And then you look at the resumes that come in and you're screening every single one of them and you're making phone calls, or no, now you've got more sophisticated technology to save you the time of doing that. Yes.
I think it depends on the position for us, Susan.
Okay. So and it depends. The idea is that time that you're now saving on that work should be invested in more knowledge type work as it relates to talent acquisition and recruiting. And I'm going to give you some examples of where that space is. because I would say, especially for the external recruiters, there's a lot of scrutiny about the fee that you're being paid. Yes or no? Like, I'm sure you're hearing about it. We paid you this. You want that percentage. That's crazy. Can you go any lower? These are value-based conversations, value around your insight, your persuasion, your influence, your effectiveness. So I'm going to give you some of the tools that you can use, hopefully easily, to overcome that obstacle. The internal talent acquisition people, you just get this, like you sent this person and they left, right? It's a very personal, you did that. We'll also talk about that a little bit more as well. All right, so pivoting a little bit more into some more stats. This is very new, very depressing information. This is just from 2022. 77% of the C-suite executives do identify hiring as a critical requirement to achieving growth. Okay, so we get that. We need people in order to grow the business, whether it's for profit or not for profit. We need people to grow the business. 82% of CEOs do not believe their companies recruited the right people. So everyone here doing talent acquisition and recruiting, the odds are not in your favor. This is terrible. Only 7% of CEOs believe that you can even retain the talent, and 40% of HR leaders kind of threw their hands up in the air and said, I can't build the skills in these people quickly enough to meet our evolving needs. So we've got some critical issues here in the workforce that I think people in the talent acquisition and recruiting space are perfectly suited to solve. And that would be of benefit for you in your career. So those numbers are very depressing. They are accurate. Between April of 21 and January of 23, 88 million people left their jobs. So we're not even talking about all of Merle's tech layoffs. We're talking about the people who quit. And this is above the pre-pandemic rates of people who quit. And there's a variety of reasons for that. And I'm going to share the list here. Some is that just from this constant restructuring that we do, people get very stressed out. And an ancillary impact of that is that it raises our premium costs. Stressed out people go to the doctor more. Stressed out people are sick more. So you've got a ripple impact on what's happening here with restructuring. The engagement levels are down. Obviously, the turnover is up. And as I mentioned before, it makes recruiting harder for you and the organization. People also talk about a lack of career development. They can't advance. The pay isn't good. The leader is uninspiring. They're not being trained. Managers don't give them feedback. I'm sure what Travis mentioned earlier is also accurate. This place just isn't what you said it would be. We know that happens again and again. When I came on my tour, this place was amazing. Everybody was wonderful. I don't know what happened between then and now, but this is not that place. That happens a lot as well. So I do ask the question. Everyone asks this question. We look at all of these numbers. On the one hand, everyone is saying, talent is critical. We want talent. We need talent. On the other hand, everybody's leaving in droves. So why is it easier to get a job at another company? What are your thoughts?
I found it pretty difficult lately.
You think it's difficult, actually?
I mean, because part of what I do is I work internally, managing my team, but I also work with clients as well, helping them as an aid in their own job search. So through a whole different assortment of different industries, and it feels like people are looking, the market in terms of the overall job market has gotten very, very dense lately. So. And so I know that's not necessarily saying that question was wrong. I just know that there are more people that from what I see, there are more people looking now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that a lot of them might be looking too because they made the decision that it was easier to go and get a better job, and that's why they're currently in the job market right now in the first place. So I know it's not really an answer. That's just kind of like my own anecdotal experience that I've been noticing in the market these days.
And that's absolutely valid. It does sound like every day I talk to somebody who's looking for something. Most of the people I'm talking to who are looking for something do already have a job. So that's interesting. The stats are horrible on lateral moves and promotions. Hiring is what's happening more. This is where more headcount is coming from and higher level positions are being filled from. And yes, I love this answer in chat. We're doing impactful recruitment strategies to attract the talent. That's absolutely right. We are working harder to make new friends than we are investing in the ones we already have. So philosophically, you can noodle that over, but maybe that's a human tendency. We're putting on a better impression for new people than we are for the ones that are here. So we'll talk about this because part of this presentation is also about upskilling and reskilling and where that matters for talent acquisition. You might, I don't want you to kind of stop the thought process at, well, if I'm not bringing in new headcount, this isn't for me, because it is. It can help you solve that problem of getting the phone call. Why did the brand new hire you send me just quit? Maybe the answer is, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, maybe the answer is developing an internal talent marketplace so that when you're given a requisition, you're filling the right need. So maybe the answer isn't immediately, okay, here's the spot, bring someone in from outside. Maybe the first question is, who do we have here already who may be suited and interested in this role that we should look at first? Let's be absolutely sure we're filling the correct role, because we might not be, right? We're very habitual. We get the rec, we hire for that spot. We don't really stop and assess or analyze if that's the right spot to fill. So interestingly enough, stakeholders or of these two groups, shareholders are the owners and employees are another stakeholder group. CEOs had traditionally always ranked the needs and priorities of the shareholders first, right? We need to make money for the shareholders or else they'll get mad at us. That has changed. They now rank the needs and priorities of the employees first because they understand that these are the people who are building the business. These are the people who are driving and adding value. So what we see now is that the most critical factor affecting business is acquiring the talent. But again, we need to be very strategic about this. Going back to what I just said, are we filling the right role? Are we really aware of what everyone here can and wants to do? Are we capturing that information? I want you to hold that thought for a second, capturing the information. But before we go too far ahead, we do need to make sure that we've got really good alignment in our practices. So the vertical alignment from top to down is, are we going out into the world looking for people and filling the roles and communicating the vision and the needs and the goals that this organization truly intends to fill? Are we all in sync? Horizontal alignment is for talent acquisition and recruiting professionals really representing accurately what things are going on in the comp and ben space of this business, the diversity in this business, the real roles, the culture, the environment. So we do need to make sure that we've got very good alignment and connections, top down, left, right. Because if we don't, that will certainly scare people away pretty quickly. They'll find a disconnect very quickly. So we want to make sure that we've got a good, solid onboarding process. Can anybody throw out some ideas of what should be in that good, solid onboarding process? What should be happening? What should a first day be like? It's my first day at your company. What should I expect? Think about basic human beings. What would you want to know if it were your first day? What would you want somebody to tell you before you got there?
I'd like
Susan, I
some
think,
increase. Oh, sorry, Jennifer. I should have raised my
no,
hand.
no. I should have raised mine. For we have a 2-day onboarding process. So the first day is really about the company, who we are, our background, what it looks like to work here, policies, procedures, the manual, being able to kind of take a tour depending on your role, right? So that's the first day. And the second day is a little bit more deeper about, I'm sorry, I was reading, a little bit more deeper about where you're going to end up. We have locations that are in New Jersey, Maryland, and kind of just expectations moving forward, next steps. That's the second day. So
Mhm.
it's really 2 full days sitting with the new employee, and being able to really answer key questions that are going to help them be successful with the organization.
Mhm.
And so
Excellent.
that's what goes on for us.
And I see Janet's response is just so real. Ensure that the desk and IT setup is complete. It is shocking how often it's not the case. One of my last full-time jobs, I went in, nobody knew to expect me. So I was, the HR person for that location. There were no other HR people at that location. I literally went to the front desk and told the head of security that I work here now and I need a badge and this is my title. When he made it, I mean, he was nice enough, but and shared his feedback. When you meet with your colleagues, could you let them know they should tell security when people are hired? So these are some basic fundamentals that we get wrong. How about lunch? I worked at another place where we didn't have a cafeteria. Everybody knew you either had to buy lunch or bring lunch. There wasn't anywhere to go buy lunch nearby. So after a few, snafus, we realized we will buy lunch for people for their first day. Here's a bunch of menus, choose what you like, just a heads up. You either have to bring it or buy it. We're taking care of you for today. Welcome. We're going to come sit down and eat with a few leaders, make it a nice experience. We'll go to Merle and then Jennifer.
Hi. No, great to hear there is still 2 days full day induction are working well for many of us, and I think I really love that hearing from Janet. Um, the the situation has gone little different in past 3 years when a lot of people are working from remote, and
Mm-hmm.
they will continue working from remote for rest of how many years we don't know, or as long as they work, right? Few jobs are being assigned to be remote, right? Now, how to create an employee experience for them?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, that's
and
a
the
great point.
and do you know the biggest fight between HR operations and recruiting? And I'm talking about the actual example in the organization where the job of a recruiting team member is to get the person joined. Who takes care of onboarding? Is it HR operations guy who handles onboarding, or recruiting guy handles onboarding,
It's the manager.
or the manager? The
That's
best
the
person,
answer
do you know the
because people are most likely to leave a job when they are brand new. Oh,
exactly?
Jennifer had her hand up, but then I'm gonna share. Why is
Yeah,
that? Why
so
are people?
I'll quickly wrap up my point is that there is always a disconnect. Who is going to handhold the employee best, right? Are the recruiting people who has promised certain things to employee, his portrayed his life in the organization, is going to be accountable for initial 3 weeks, 4 weeks, settling down, for the person in the new life, helping him settling down in the new life, or he's just going to hand over to a new person who has no connect from the past during the hiring process, how the process went, what kind of discussion happened, and a completely fresh look and a different view, or a great manager who is going to take over the onboarding part. Now
Yes.
everything has some amount of a gap in the smooth handover, right? And if it's a very mechanical process, if the process is not being handed over well to the next accountability holder, things will or things have been going in a mess in several organizations which I have experienced. So this is a great need, for a smooth handover from three bucket of the processes eventually for one person who is going to be your employee from a candidate, and how automation is going to help is a question mark. So no, great. Jennifer, your views. Sorry, this was my, pain points I thought to share.
No problem. I just wanted to also mention that onboarding for my organization, it is way before that day one. It's way before
Yes.
they come in on their first day. There are countless conversations to be had, and countless preparation to be able to make sure that it's a seamless process and that it's a successful one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is critical. So, to Merlee's point about those three buckets and Jennifer's about the work that goes into that cohesion, that's critical. Your new hires are the most likely to leave because they're still fresh in everyone else's system. They're still getting phone calls. So that's why we need to really nail this onboarding for sure. That's a big piece of why you get those angry phone calls about the brand new person that you sent, that you sent me, quit. All right. So here's a big solve right there is with your onboarding process. And then when they've been there for a little while, we need there to be opportunities. This is connected to what I said earlier about, are you filling the right role? So leaders think there's advancement opportunities at the company. Studies show employees don't believe you because they don't see them. When there's a new opportunity, they just see new people get hired. So this is where we need talent acquisition, and this is easier if you're internal, to be building those talent networks within the organization. If you're external, you should be asking the question, I want to make sure, I want to vet this, that I'm filling the right role. Could this be a meaningful opportunity to someone that you already have? Because that will raise the engagement level, and that's going to the engagement level of the employees, but it's also going to add to your credibility as a professional. You will be viewed as a valued partner because you're getting people to think those strategic thoughts and make good moves. And I know a lot of people think that, the robots are going to take our jobs and, they're going to control us and it's all going to be weird and strange. But the numbers are actually showing that by the year 2030, we're going to lose out on $8.5 trillion in annual revenue, because what AI will do is make insights available to us that we should be acting on. We're not going to have the people who can act on them. So this is an interesting stat for anybody that's dealing with that kind of narrative, or that you're hearing that kind of narrative out there, that AI is going to do it, AI is going to take my job, AI is going to do it all. It's really not. AI, what it will do in the talent acquisition space, like the applicant tracking system automated the first pass at the resumes for the most part, it's probably going to automate the first interview. So how many of you are aware that they're already testing out, and in some cases using robots and AI to do first interviews? Did you know that that's already happening? Right? So while you're being saved this time to stay a strategic knowledge partner in the talent acquisition space, you're going to pivot your energy and your knowledge to becoming that strategic partner. And we'll talk a little bit more. Yes, they are using AI coaches. It's crazy. So we are going to talk about, value. Again, before, your value was you filled the spot and you did it quickly. Great, thank you. Now we're looking at quality, and quality is going to evolve to be more than this person was a high performer. You helped us find the high performer, but it's going to also come from your business insight that you're contributing in the talent space. So what is your job? We kind of started with this. I had to really pull this out of you. So we did kind of talk about what your job is, but who do you work for? And I don't literally mean what's the name of your employer, but if you're working for the business, and that really is the answer here, you work for the business. Who does your business work for? These are the kind of insights that you really need to harness, and that you need to be able to, in essence, kind of coach or brainstorm with the person who's seeking your services to fill their headcount. You need to understand the customer journey. You need to understand the workplace, the culture, the vibe, and all of those ingredients, because talent acquisition has evolved beyond bodies and seats. And I know you know that piece isn't brand new, but the kind of insights and things that you should be sharing, those are new. So what you really should be doing here, in my opinion, is being able to give stats, a few, like I gave you earlier, around costs, around financial opportunities. So again, a lot of this isn't going to be on a P&L. The stuff that we look at, the stuff that we measure is what gets managed. And I understand all that, but you really need to be a knowledge partner. You need to be able to provide dashboards. I feel like Merlee probably provides dashboards. Who else? I just answered for him. I kind of feel sure that he does, but who else does? Who else is visualizing data? It's okay, no judgment, but I encourage you to get more comfortable with that. So that kind of sounds like a crazy statement. What do you mean get more comfortable with that? That's a really big monster thing. But I will tell you the secret is that if you're using any kind of system, they have your data. Your vendors have your data. They definitely have your data. So I want you to get it from them. Those of you who are internal, I want you to get that data. I want you to be able to provide a digital platform, use sophisticated tools, get your vendors on the phone, make them teach you things, make them give you demos, use AI and predictive analytics to streamline your recruiting. External recruiters, you can do this to identify future leaders because you can find them anywhere. Everybody's out there on tech right now. But the idea is that I want you to get your data because it's out there, someone has it, and I want you to use it to provide meaningful insights. This is critical work. And I do want you to level up on the interviewing a little bit. Is anybody here still asking, where do you plan to be in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your biggest weakness? Are you still asking those questions? Or do you know that everybody's been coached on how to spit out the right answer to you? I see some giggles. Oh, go ahead, Travis. I see you unmuted.
I know that like there are certain questions that like I think if anybody just goes and types up like top 10 most common questions asked in an interview and everything,
AI. They're using AI. Go ahead.
yep, exactly. They're already using the data analytics to get the answers they're looking for. And even like the what's your greatest weakness, I feel like most people kind of know it's a nonsense question too, in that, you're trying to either give like a strength disguised as a weakness, or you don't want to say something like, oh, no one's gonna be like, I don't really like working very hard. I'm
Mhm.
kind of lazy or anything like that. And
Done after 2 o'clock. Yeah.
yeah, there's the little dance that people that people end up trying to do to get around an authentic answer to the question. So um, for me, it's been more towards trying to find. I'm more of the second stage. I do more of the second round of interviewing for my company, and I had come to find after there was a lot of early folks resigning or turning over. It's like, okay, what are we really doing in that first round? How are we actually really like presenting our business, and how are we really conveying? Here's the stuff that might be a challenge in the job. Here's the things that people haven't liked. What is this? Does this align to you? Does this not align over to you?
Mhm.
And trying to gain some feedback from them around that, and then finding out like even like you were saying, not the 5-year question, but what are you passionate about professionally, and or what are your short-term and long-term passions, and then trying to find out if that's in alignment with my company overall too.
Yes. And a lot of this stuff you can digitize. I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but there's a great case study that came out of India, and they explain how the job process is a little bit different there with giving notice and working through the notice period and then reconfirming the job. But they started, inputting into the machine, when did they make an offer? When was it accepted? When did the candidate confirm that they resigned at their current employer, and then tracked all the time. They use technology to determine within a matter of a day where were there risks for applicants rescinding their acceptance. And they determined a specific point in time where if the applicant hadn't resigned from their job by that point, they were most likely to rescind accepting the offer. And they built a whole process around how to manage that. They explored, why is that happening? They reached back out to these people to find out what happened in that time period. And then they changed their whole process so that they were able to engage the applicant and really make them excited about joining the company so that they did move forward in the process with resigning from their employer and ultimately coming on board. So a lot of what you've said, we can use technology. A lot of the bells and whistles are there and we have them turned off. So I do encourage people to go back to those vendors and start using these tools. So yes, absolutely perfect example. So I would also encourage you to kind of flip the script on your interviewing a little bit, from what can you do for us and why do you want to work here to what are your goals? What are you seeking to accomplish here? What would you like to learn? These are better indicators of fit, engagement, and longevity. When people can specify and they have an understanding of their goals already and they know what they want to accomplish and what they want to learn, it's a huge indicator of high performance right there. So I encourage you, if you will, to kind of get more of a sampling around performance by asking more probative questions like these. I think that these are higher caliber questions. So I encourage you to kind of think about that a little bit more. And I did tell you before that yes, AI tech is going to hopefully free up a lot of your time. What I would encourage you to start doing is skill mapping. So there's a saying out there that jobs don't require four-year degrees, employers do. And we do work as an adjunct professor, and I like it. So I want people to keep going to colleges and getting degrees. I appreciate that when they do. And I think there's a tremendous amount of value in that journey for a variety of reasons. But even from a higher ed perspective, we are looking at skills. What are the skills that we need these students to be able to demonstrate so that they are employable? And skill mapping is a big piece of that, understanding what are the skills that are needed to perform the work. And companies that know this on a granular level, managers who know this on a granular level about the roles that they're accountable for, are much better positioned in the marketplace. And even not for profit, same thing. They can move their talent around, they can promote people, they can hire better. By better, I don't mean just quicker, but it's easier to identify what you need, and they're more likely to stay with you. So whether you're an internal or external recruiter, this is key for your success in your role, right? Getting all three: good, fast, cheap, right? Perfect. So skill mapping has a lot to do with that. So a lot of the strategy here is around building that internal marketplace. And I do think you're going to spend more time on that, even if you are an external recruiter, because you're building your relationship with your client. So you need to understand their business, and to really be that valued partner, you should be able to have that conversation about the opportunities, about rewards. Are they rewarding for performance? Are they inclusive? And talking about the benefits of competitive advantage. This is going to wow people, right? You're not just here to put a body in a seat. You're really partnering, you're educating, you're providing insight. So they're not going to be quite as cranky about your 25, maybe 30% cut on the hire, right? Because they're feeling like they're getting something for that. And this is a sample list of the things, whether you're internal. If you're internal, you really definitely need to know all this. If you're external, it's an added booster. It's going to help you build your relationship with your client, that you know these things, the why around their mission and vision. Why are they doing this? Why do they care about this? What are their priorities? What does success look like for everyone at the organizational level, at the individual level? How are people assessed? How many of you as a recruiter have gotten an angry call from somebody that you placed? Hey, you didn't tell me this. I didn't know to expect this. They want me to do something totally different than what you told me this job was. It's unfair, it's unreasonable. So these are really important nuts and bolts for you to be familiar with, internal or external. People strategy, you should understand inside the organization, what kind of tools do they use? What's the place like? What's the structure? Externally, what's the job market like? What's the market like? What's going on in the world? What should we expect? HR people who are HR generalists are spending a lot of time wondering what's going to go on with the election, what's going to happen. You might also be thinking about economics and what's going to happen, labor force, accessibility to labor force and talent. So all of these are things that I would encourage you to spend your time on to level yourself up, while hopefully AI is freeing up some of your time from other things, right? The impactful communication, the conversations that you're having. Some of this I've covered already, but if you're doing recruiting internally, you should know a lot about your competitors. You should know what it's like to work there as best as you can. You should know where they are thriving, where you may be struggling, or where you're thriving. So it's not to say that you're going to criticize anybody else, but we want you to discuss the opportunity, the organization with pride and excitement. These are the things that we're doing really well. This is why you want to work here. So comparing and contrasting, again, just not in the weeds with a body in a seat, but really being a valued partner. You want to know enough about the team, and I'm wrapping up here, but you want to know enough about the team so that you can demonstrate your pride and communicate to others that this is a great team to be a part of. These are highly effective people. They are high performers. They're amazing people. This is a winning team that people would be proud to be a part of. Also, we don't do a lot of training. Numbers are pretty bleak, but there's a humongous difference in the productivity of an organization based on what investment they make into training their workforce. So if you find that you're dealing with a client or even, your own employer, and there's an enormous amount of turnover, it's possible that investing in training will move the needle, because high performers are highly motivated by learning and growing. So we find an amazing change just by adding a few more training days to people per year. So all the stats are here. And again, it's a significant reason for turnover. So I feel like this is an easy fix that's not massively expensive. So it's something to think about. This is where you can upskill the workers. Work ethic. We don't like to see good workers leave. We like them. They have a good work ethic. It's expensive to replace them. A lot of the big companies are making big investments into retraining, right? So totally changing someone's job. So these big, impressive employers are making massive investments into retraining people so that they can do another job. That might be the right answer. And that, I think, will make you be perceived as being a very valued partner if you're having these honest conversations. So that's a wrap for me. Again, that's the QR codes for the website and the LinkedIn. Please stay in touch, and I will open the floor for questions and conversation.
Actually, Susan, I was a little curious if you felt like there was, and to speak to your last point about, higher level training and, leveling up training with organizations in general, if you felt like there was any kind of a sweet spot in terms of how long an organization's training period should be. Because we had started with a 1 week training period, and once we started to refine things longer, we more and more it grew into a 4 week continual training program that was still kind of progressing in the weeks to follow from that, but it went from like a week to 4 weeks. And if there was ever any kind of like it could get to diminishing returns with training, or if the data actually shows that like there's an ideal training period that in like a vacuum would be like the most suitable length of time for a training program to take place.
So for new hires,
Mhm.
it is closer to 4 weeks. And there, I don't can't perfectly remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's something like you're only going to be at 50% productivity by, I think, month 3, and you're not at 100% productivity until month 6. I think I have that right. But that there is that need, right? And training can mean a bunch of different things. So day one, training means, where's the coffee? Where is this? Where is that? Where are my things? Right. So I think your first week really is 0% productivity. And then you move up a little bit more. So it isn't necessarily that the 4 weeks are 100% removed from any kind of productive activities, but 4 weeks is still heavily focused on training. You scale up a little bit, if that makes sense.
Most definitely. And I completely agree. Thank you.
Awesome. Hello, Marlee, you're up.
So, Susan, we are understanding and assuming that the organization has money to spend on training.
Mhm.
Uh, they're doing well. They are having budget allocated for training, onboarding, doing events. The fact
Mhm.
is that the organization is working on a very tight budget. We don't have money. We are working on a real tight bottom line. We expect that the talent should come uh, ready productive from day zero.
So
I
even
don't
if
have
they
bandwidth. I
do,
don't have money either to train people.
if you
I
don't
want
have
people.
money to invest in your people, you're not going to keep the people and you might not keep your business.
No,
So
I want my
even
hiring
for,
team to hire people who are having those skill sets which are
so that's fair,
helpful
but
for me to perform.
how long do you expect that to last before those people need updates and new information and access to new technology that has evolved since they were, let's say you hired a 10 out of 10 on productivity. How long do you think is realistic for them to stay at 10 out of 10 without any new learning?
The day I achieve two-digit EBITDA, I'll start having some money for training. But till the time I'm on a two-digit EBITDA, uh, I'm working on a real tight bottom line. I want my talent acquisition team to hire people, those who are productive from day one.
Well, sure.
Neither
But
I have
how long is
time, neither
that?
I have money to spend. But
But
I
how
want
long does that last?
till the time we achieve, say, 20% EBITDA margin for the business.
I mean, maybe it will.
So the point is that the HR folks should understand that the business will not always have a luxury of spending money on onboarding and training. HR should also know how to repair aircraft when aircraft is airborne. There are many situations where HR guys are not gaining respect from business only because they understand and they assume that certain things are going to happen in the business come what may. They don't realize that at some point of time they need to rectify the fault when the flight is airborne. And that's the capability business is expecting HR guys to have in maneuvering with uncertainty and ambiguity. And that's the point where business leaders are very clear that we want someone who can navigate in the ambiguity, navigate in the adversity very smoothly. And they're checking first the adversity quotient level in the HR guy, the HR leader, those who are being
But you're
hired.
talking about two different things. Ambiguity, skills with navigating ambiguity and change are different than knowledge becoming stale. And anyone who has not grasped the fact that technology is making everyone's knowledge stale very quickly, their business is at risk.
But that is available in the open market. For example, developing me is my own agenda, right? Remaining employable is my own agenda.
That is
Retaining
your
my
own agenda,
employment is
but
my
I
own
would ask
agenda.
you
And that has to
to
remain the agenda of
reflect on
employees.
how long do you want to stay employed at a company that's not investing in your learning, but you're investing in your learning yourself, and then somebody else knocks on your door and they're doing a lot better, and they invest in their people, and they're interested in hiring you,
You
then
know,
that goes to loyalty, right? Maybe you would still stay anyway, but the odds are that you wouldn't. The odds are that you, as a talented person who's now investing in yourself, the odds are that you're going to take another offer when you receive it. And if you are investing in
in any which
yourself,
way, people will take
you
offer.
will receive another offer.
See, when today the loyalty is a word which is getting little remote from the business. But sorry, I don't want to drag the discussion. This is a longer discussion, but
No, I know. And Lisa's
the,
trying to ask a question real hard too. I feel
yeah,
bad.
the things are changing, and we also should equip ourselves with the changing thought process in the business. That's the only point I'm trying to drive.
No, and I think that your point is valid, right? So, yes, if your company doesn't have any money to invest in your learning, you should invest in yourself. And I'm going to just be blunt and say the people who find that they have to invest in themselves are going to leave that job. And that's the reality that that employer needs to understand.
My point is how we guarantee that the person whom we are investing are not going to leave us. See, this is a way. The point is that retaining someone by training them doesn't mean that you are going to retain people. By not training doesn't mean that you are going to the person is going to leave. The retaining a talent in the business requires several other things than only training. That's my only point.
Well, sure, you have to
Yeah.
pay them well.
Yeah.
You have to treat them well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But study after study will show you the number one driver of a high performing employee is the opportunity to learn and develop. That's number one. They'll actually
I see a
take
point.
they'll take less money in exchange for more opportunity.
Yeah. No, I take a point. Thank you.
All right. I know Lisa tried so hard to ask a question. You asked that question,
No,
Lisa.
I wasn't trying to interrupt, and I was just weaving through more of these comments, and I appreciated that. So I just wanted to lower my hand so it didn't seem like it was up there, and I think I hit it by accident. So I agree with the part about, maybe this isn't a question, just an observation, that you want to hire someone that can hit the ground running, that they can be productive. I agree with that. Um, as far as training, I think we're maybe having to see, we all define training in a different capacity. So yeah, budgets can be low. So if we know the stats are proving, especially the younger workers, but also the senior workers, they want growth and learning. So it's not merely just, oh, let me cater to what you want to learn. You want to learn photography? Yeah, sure. We're not going to pay for that. But I think it's coming up with that initial question on the onboard, well, in the interview is, where do you want to grow? What interests you? What do you want to learn?
Mhm.
And that gives you an insight is, if that's something they're going to learn here on the job, then we're going to meet that need. If that's something that we as a company need to get to learn, then they're going to be in the right spot later. So if you want to match your training to match the future of the company, so you say, oh, I don't have a budget, I can't train you. Well, then that your company, I don't think, is understanding that it has to learn. So what it has to learn and grow in order to provide a service to meet consumer needs, for innovation, that's kind of the track that you want to train the team, your staff on. But as it relates to their goals, so there's got to be, I believe, a connection.
A balance,
And if the
absolutely.
balance, yeah, what do you want to learn? This is who you're going to grow. This can happen here, and that's what we need as a company. So let's train this person for the future of the organization. I think that's where the investment is going to come in.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
The build and buy will always remain there, two sides of a coin. Rather, whether my intention is to build the talent or buy the talent, right? If I'm Elon Musk, I'll buy the talent. If I'm Mark Zuckerberg, probably I'll decide to build the talent. Diverse leadership, diverse thought process,
Well,
which
then
is
it's
right.
looking at, do you want to retain talent? Because if you
Exactly. So the point is,
incrementally build your existing talent, to Susan's point, there may be more loyalty, and it is always less expensive to retain talent than it is to hire new talent, because
Well, it is.
onboard and assimilate, and then now
And that's why
I'm not talking about a talent that becomes hostile, or they're not doing their, you don't talk about a bad employee,
And
but
I give you even the examples of companies right now that are recognizing we need to fill new roles. What we're going to do is reskill these groups of people who already work here, because we want to keep them and enable them to do new jobs. So, and once upon a time, that is the way it used to be. We stopped doing that for a very long time, and now that's becoming in fashion again. Jennifer, your hand is up.
Well, the conversation has been great. Thank you all for the input. I will say that is where the data comes in. When you start to take surveys and polls and understand what's needed in the departments of the particular organization that you work for, then that's how you're going to benefit. And for us, we created an entire learning management system for our people per the department that they work in. We also have tuition assistance so they can go back to school if it's something pertaining to their growth and development. But it's definitely necessary because it continues to move the business forward with all of the newness that's coming in. How do you move business forward, Merle, if everyone is stagnant in their positions?
No, you have a valid point, Jennifer. My only point is today developing self is individual accountability, or he will always look up to organization to help him develop himself. Number one. Number two, going forward, is individual the ownership lies on whom? And you will get a real-time data when you look at the utilization of your LMS platforms, whether it is PeopleSoft, whether you Harvard Management, or we have been investing tons of money on those LMSs. What is the utilization of those LMSs? How many people really attend that? How many people are actually leveraging the knowledge or certification they are doing on the job to benefit the business? That is going to be a real test of success of any LMS. If it is happening in your place, fantastic. My experience is that many organizations who have invested tons of money on LMSs and the L&D team is not focused on leveraging those learnings which they are deriving out of the LMSs into the business back, or the business partners, they are not sensitive. Eventually, that is becoming a cost than becoming a resource for the
So
business.
you have a couple good points. So to answer your first point, believe it or not, I am a believer that the onus is on the self to continually learn and develop. Now, again, the self is going to quit that job if the job is not supporting the self. But to your point around LMSs, part of the problem is that there's some content that you simply can't put on a recorded training. It does require a human touch. And most of the work that I do training organizations is with companies that have an LMS, and the LMS is not effective because it's simply not the right medium. And I do see that we may find a pivot in that line of business as companies or customers of the LMS providers become more cranky about poor low utilization. So Jennifer, your hand is up.
Oh no, I didn't put it down. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, this has been an energetic conversation. Look at us running late. That's crazy.
Not at all running late. You're right on time. This is a perfect segue, Susan. It was quite insightful. You are a master at the data and weaving it in, and how at least this is my perspective on how we can weave it into our business case. Because at the end of the day, every day we have to sell our idea to our managers, to our leaders, to our employees. And you've given us some food for thought to kind of help us shift our knowledge. And you've trained us a little bit today on sort of
Awesome.
positioning. Granted, I'm not a recruiter, if everyone knows me on the call, but it gives me more food for thought as I build my training programs for the people in HR that I work with. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
And I had the added benefit here of having a nice intimate group. We were able to have a very engaging and passionate back and forth conversation. So I think we all definitely appreciate that, and hopefully walked away with some very, very insightful content and data for all of that. Um, Susan, was there any final wrap up that you wanted to share before we closed off, or anything like that? We are tremendously grateful for everything you have shared tonight.
I know a lot of you here. For those I don't know, stay in touch. I sent the links. You know how to find me. And Janet wants to know if you also have an HRCI code. Oh, thank you, Janet. It would definitely qualify for business. So I'm just going to steal their thunder. He would have had to already submit it for business. Did you do that, Travis? He might not have.
We'll get a
No,
SHRM code, not an HRCI code.
yes, we had a SHRM recertification code.
But Janet, I will tell you, you can, I'm a little bit of a whiz with the codes. You can self-enter this and you can still indicate it being valid for business. You just won't have a pre-approved code. So when you go to recertify, it might take like another extra minute for them to look at it and review it. But there is a little bit of a misconception out into the world. You don't have to have a pre-approval code for every activity. You can still manually enter them in and they can still be a part of your recert application. Okay, I'm going to hand it back over to Travis.
Hey, the learning keeps continuing here, Susan. Thank you. Well, HRCI hack and everything for the future for everybody. So that's really, really excellent. So just to say, I think to speak for everybody, Susan, thank you so much for giving us your time and your insight over here today. I have walked away with a lot to take with me. I think everyone can most definitely say the same. We hope that you will be further aligned with us as we continue for future engagements because it's always a great session when you're involved with us. So we do genuinely
Wonderful.
appreciate everything. And speaking of us and the future, folks, mark your calendar. Well, maybe not mark your calendar, but the first week of December, we're aiming for December 5th will be our closing event for the year. We'll be targeting what to expect in the recruiting market into 2025. I'm sure we all have a lot of wonders and curiosity about that and would like to learn more. So we will certainly be making that a key point over to the future. And so once again, thank you all for attending this evening. We will be following up. We're sending out the information about Susan's website to stay further affiliated with her. The recertification code will be forthcoming as well. It's been a pleasure to have everyone here for tonight. And let's go Yankees. Let's go Mets.